Hi everyone, I'm Rachel Tessman from stampyourartout.com. I'm an independent Stampin' Up! Demonstrator from Andover, Minnesota. Today is June 22nd, 2022, and this is not a live video. Today it's pre-recorded because my schedule did not allow for me to be live with all of you. I really hope that you enjoy what I have to share though. It's a very fun card. Back in January of 2021, so about a year and a half ago, I shared both of these cards on my blog. This one I demonstrated in a video, which you may have seen, and then the next day I blogged about this card, which is very similar. These are Faker Shaker cards, so they're interactive cards. When the person receives their card, they want to just go, oh my gosh, this is so fun. So I'm going to do another Faker Shaker today, and they were influenced by these cards. In fact, the card that I have to share with you today is very much influenced by this one. This is using the Floating and Fluttering bundle, which is no longer available. This one's using the Friends Are Like Seashells bundle, and the stamp set and all the parts and pieces are still available except for this designer paper and the fun sequins. So, but we're going to do another version of that. So if you really want to make a sea life type of card, then we can do it with current products. I'm going to be using the Fish Builder Punch. I'm also going to be using some fun designer paper, which I'm going to show you in a minute here. The Friends Are Like Seashells stamp set for this sentiment here. And then the botanical layers is where this image comes in. So let's begin. By the way, if you're enjoying any of the products that I'm sharing with you in today's video, you can purchase them. There are links to the products in the description of my video. There's also a link to my blog post where you can find photos of the finished card and more information. This video will actually be in that blog post as well. And I have links to the blog post where I shared these two cards here. So you'll be able to access information to all the things that I'm sharing. So basically, we're going to be using all Stampin' Up! Products. This is the fun new glimmer paper. This is 2022 through 24 in color glimmer paper. We're going to be punching our fish from that just because fish need to glitter and sparkle. Here's that Fish Builder Punch. It's a fun one. These are the two stamp sets. I'm going to be using this image here and then the sentiment from this stamp set plus this image right there. And then this is the beautiful designer paper that I was telling you about. Now you don't think about sea life necessarily when you see this paper here. I got to put this one on top because it's amazing. But I did when I saw one of the papers in here. So let me show you, let me walk you through all of these papers real quick. So you can see there's not a lot of different color on these papers. Gray Granite, Night of Navy, Starry Sky, and Pacific Point are the colors that you'll see. But it looks like the type of artwork that you would do when you lay nature down onto that blue, that special kind of paper that reacts to sunlight. This is called Sunprints paper. So now that you've seen them all, just want to let you know that you do get twice as many, and they're all double-sided. So you get 12 sheets of double-sided designs. There's also another designer paper pack that we have that includes different colors, not just blue, but like 4 different colors and same type of look. It's called Pretty Prints. So you'll want to check that one out. The first thing that we're going to do is we're going to use our Pacific Point cardstock and our trimmer, and we're going to walk through the basics of making a card base. I try to do that in all my videos in case any of you are beginning crafters. So this is our 8.5 by 11 cardstock. Half of 11 is 5.5 inches. So we're going to go ahead and cut our cardstock in half in this direction so that we have a card that opens like this. You can make 2 from one sheet of 8.5 by 11. So we're going to take this piece now and we're going to bring it to the halfway point at 4.25 inches. We're going to use the gray blade instead, and I've marked my gray blade with the word score. That way I will know not to cut my paper when I don't want to. I just used a Sharpie marker. So now we have a card base that measures 4.25 by 5.5. I've got it so it opens in this direction. We've got a couple other pieces that we're going to be using for our layers. We're going to have a white layer on the outside, a white layer on the inside. We're going to be using some of that Sunprints designer paper through the white paper like this. We'll have a layer, or actually 2 layers on top for our sentiments. We're going to be using the Parakeet Party green and then some more basic white. We're going to be using also a clear envelope, and that's the key for our Faker Shaker. We have some embellishments as well. We're going to be using these fancy, for everything fancy sequins. We'll be using the blue pack. They come together as a group, as a trio. And then we'll be using this fun ribbon. This is our woven metallic ribbon in the Starry Sky color. And then, of course, you remember that we're going to be using the glimmer paper. So I've already punched out with my fish builder punch this really cute long fish from the darker of the green area. Okay, let's start stamping. We're going to be using this image first. So I've got that set to go. We'll grab our ink colors. The 3 ink colors that we're going to be using are Parakeet Party, Pacific Point, and Night of Navy. Let's open up the Night of Navy ink pad. And we'll be using our photopolymer stamp. So let's go ahead and put our Stampin' Pierce Matte underneath just so that we get a nice full image. We're going to stamp that down, lift it up, and this is going to be cut with one of our circle dies. I'll show you those in a second. We're also going to cut a layer from that with another set of circle dies. Now let's grab our white, and we're going to stamp onto, we don't need this anymore actually, we're going to stamp directly onto our white paper with Parakeet Party ink. So let's bring that in. Parakeet Party is a very nice bright green. It's cheerful. We're going to stamp that up towards the top and the top left, like so. I'll press that down. And if you look at this, our seaweed is not really as tall as it should be. So what we're going to do is we're going to mask, just using a little post-it note here, and just sticking down some a mask piece here. The post-it note acts as a mask. It's going to cover up anything that I don't want to have showing. So now we're going to stamp that image again, and we're bringing it down lower onto our white cardstock. This is a mess in here, but that's going to get covered up with the designer paper, and it gives the appearance of a lot taller piece of seaweed that way. Before we put this down though, we want to use our blending brushes, and we're going to add some ink. So let's go ahead and put away the green ink, the Parakeet Party, and let's open up Pacific Point and Night of Navy. So this is our Night of Navy and our Pacific Point. Bringing in the blending brushes, and I've identified mine. I like to put a little label on the back of my brushes so I remember which color I use them in. But you can just, run them until they're, no longer putting out a lot of color, and then use them in a similar color if you want to. I just choose not to do that. All right, let's start blending. I'm starting with my lighter color. And I'm going to go off my paper just a little bit and then come inward. I got a very dark, or a lot of ink showing here, so I'm trying to soften it up by having most of my ink start where the designer paper is going to be covering it up. And that way the ink color will soften as it comes outward. And we're going to do the same thing coming down from the top. So I'm starting off the corner here, and I'm coming in like this, and I do want to have that blue coming into most of the white cardstock, but not all of it. We'll add a little bit more ink to the blending brush, and we'll start down in this corner and come inward like so. Okay, now we can cover this up and see if there's anything that bugs us. If not, I think we're good to go. I'm going to go up just a little bit more with this, and down a little bit more on those areas. Okay, now for the Night of Navy, that's the darker of the inks, and so I'm going to not go as deep into the paper. So I'm going to start off like I did before, and I'm going to come up and in, Just kind of adding that second layer of color and trying to blend it with what I already have so that you can see the two different colors, but they're not super distinct from each other. They flow into each other pretty well. And again, you can be checking. I'll do a little bit more here. I got a little heavy-handed here, and it's probably because I'm not used to going from the top down, so I rotated my paper and then went upward that way, softened it out a bit, but you can see there's a little tiny mark there that could bug me, but I'm not going to let it because card making is not perfect. This is going to get taped across here now. We're ready for that, and because we're going to have sequins floating inside that envelope, I want to make sure that my tape, my seal tape, is coming right to the edges, the bottom and the top edges there, so that it does not allow for any of my sequins to kind of fall behind. And then at this point, I'm just going to use the lines on my grid paper to help guide me. I'm going to place this piece of designer paper about 1.25 inches from the bottom. So what I've got here is 5 of those little squares. Each one of them is 1/4 inch. And my designer paper is 2 inches by 4 inches. So it layers on there very nicely. This piece here is 4 inches by 5 1/4. Okay, so that piece is ready to be inserted into our envelope. So we're going to grab that clear envelope, and we want the seal part to be towards the back. So we're going to slip it in here, and you can either have it shifted to the left or to the right. It's your choice. Before we seal it completely up, we are going to add some sequins, but I'm going to first take and fold it. And I'm going to use my bone folder just to give it an extra good crease to make sure that that envelope lies flat on my card. And then we're going to seal it with just some regular one-sided tape, like Scotch Brand or something. Seal it there. We'll seal it here. And then we're going to add the sequins. Just going to use one of my little mini spoons here. Sometimes you'll find in your stash that you have like a couple pieces that are connected to each other that are causing problems. So you might want to check your sequins. Turn over any of the pearls that they lie in the flat direction. Looks good. Okay, now that your sequins are in your bag the way you want them, you're going to flip it over again, and you're going to use the bone folder, give it a good crease. And then at this point, I'm just going to add a little extra fold here because I don't want my envelope sticking out. I'm going to peel off my release paper from the back side here, fold it in that position again, and now it's held right in that little part where we have adhesive. We're going to flip this over and seal it shut. And here is the Faker Shaker part of the card. Fun, right? Okay, let's work on some more stamping. By the way, if I forget to share any measurements as I'm going through this card, just know that you can go to that blog post and all the measurements are listed there. We're going to use Parakeet Party ink again and this fun botanical stamp, botanical layers stamp. And we're going to stamp the inside layer for the card now. For that, we're going to stamp this one just kind of off to the lower left. And again, and we're having it down to the lower right, a little bit lower. And then let's bring in the other seaweed looking, I don't know what you call this kind of plant, but we're just going to call it underwater plants, and we'll stamp one there, and then we'll do another one maybe right up in that area there. So now we have a fun inside layer for our card. And you could put another sentiment in there from that stamp set, or of course, because you're using botanical layers, you have a couple different sets of words to look for and use. Now let's bring in that Stampin' Cut and Emboss machine and die cut a couple circle layers. For creating those circle layers, we're going to be using the Stylish Shapes dies, the third from the smallest or the fourth from the biggest of the circles. Then we're also going to be using the fourth from the smallest, so 1, 2, 3, 4, this one here, from the Layering Circles set of dies. These dies, if you're curious, measure about 1 5/8, a little over 1 5/8 in diameter, and then this one is almost 2 inches, about 1 7/8 inches in diameter. So let's set up our machine. We've got our platform number 1. We've got our magnetic plate number 5, and I'm choosing the magnetic plate because I don't want the circle to move when I'm die cutting this one. Now you do have the advantage of being able to die cut this circle first and then stamping, because this is a photopolymer stamp set, so you see right through it. I didn't do that, but you certainly could. Now if you have a cling mount type of stamp, or clear mount, or a rubber stamp, then you want to do your stamping first and then your die cutting. After you've got those two on, then you just need plate number 3 on top of that to hold it all in place. And let's crank it through. And there are our beautiful layers. So it's time to put everything together now. I'm going to go ahead and crease my card base here. Let's bring in a few of these sequins and find the one that we want the most. I'm going to be using the fine tip glue pen for this. I've transferred my fine tip glue into another container that's got a little applicator that's easier, a little bit easier for me to use. And I just squeezed out a little bit of glue where I want the eye of my fish to be. I'm using the gummy end of my Take Your Pick tool to grab one of these tiny sequins, and I'm just going to lay that on top like so, and we'll just let that sit and dry a bit. I've also pre-cut 2 lengths of 20 inches of ribbon, so we have 2 strands of that. Let's go ahead and add this to the inside. Now you don't necessarily need to put the length of the seal adhesive all the way around on this layer. A little bit in each corner will do just fine. We're also going to layer these 2 pieces together. And we're going to kind of layer them off balance just because I think it's a fun, whimsical look. Let's take the ribbon and wrap it around. We're going to keep the ends the same. Grab the strands, start from the back, come around to the front. We're just going to peek to make sure that there's no twisting or turning, and we'll tie a knot first. I'm just treating my ribbon as if it's all one piece of ribbon instead of 2. It's a little bit easier to hold on to that way. And once you have it tied in a bow, then you can take and separate out your 2 loops on each side. So that all of those loops stand separate from each other. You can trim up your ribbon. We're going to add these with dimensionals, and before we add them, you want to just check to make sure that that's where it's going to fit. And if you have to shift your ribbon, you can do so at this point, because you can curve your cardstock and move it like this. I think having the bow in the middle though is going to work just fine. Let's bring it down just a bit too, because we want to have room for our fish. I'm putting the dimensionals directly on top of the card layer instead of underneath this piece here, because if I do get this on here and decide that the ribbon isn't quite in the right place, I can still shift it. I'm looking at my words to make sure that this line of text here is parallel to the bottom of the card. And again, if I need to, I can still move my ribbon. Now we're adding seal adhesive on the back side. I think that's going to be the best adhesive to add to the plastic of the envelope. And I'm doing that along all 4 sides to make sure that it's really sealed well. We'll just add that to the front here. I'm pressing down. And then we're going to add our fish, and we're just going to use seal adhesive to add that in this little section here. Now if it bugs you that the fish is kind of covered up by the strands of ribbon here, you can always trim them a little bit shorter. I left them longer on this card, but I think just working with them, eventually they kind of shifted. And isn't that fun? Oh my gosh, you can move those little sequins all over the place. This is a great card to give to somebody. It's a great card to make for somebody too. I really had fun making these. And I hope that you had fun watching me show you how to make these Faker Shakers. To shop for any of the products, you can either look in the description of my video for the blog post to click there and access a visual supply list, or if you scroll down even further, you'll be able to see all the supplies listed in the description of my video as well. It's been 2 weeks though, and I miss you all, so I will be live next week. Please join me next Wednesday, June 29th at 11 a.m. Central Time as I come to you live. And I would appreciate it if you would subscribe to my channel. If you're not subscribed already, give me the thumbs up and share away. But on that note, I hope that you come back, and thank you all for watching now. Now I'd like you all to go and stamp your art out. Bye-bye.